What have they done? Hi guys, it's Camilo here. And obviously, as you already know, this is my reaction to Man Booker International Shortlist. Yeah, so today the shortlist was announced. You can see my reaction to the long list that I will link somewhere here, and you probably can say, just watching few seconds of each of those videos, that I was much more excited with the long list than what they did with it, shrinking it into a short list. So let me start from the fact that makes me kind of happy, because obviously there is still, even me being lefty, there is still a bit of patriotism here and I'm always very warm and fuzzy inside seeing Poles that I admire doing well in the world. So Olga Tokarczuk with her Flights. This is Polish original version of her book Bieguny, is on the shortlist. She was published by Fitzgerald edition. You know, those books in these beautiful blue covers that I have 3 of on my shelf, and I just killed some other books. So those are the Fitzgerald edition that I have, and she is released in one of those. Translated by Jennifer Croft. I already talked about this one. I don't think this is the strongest Tokarczuk book, but I'm happy that she's recognized with whatever she has written. I liked it. It's very fragmented, not a traditional type of novel, which I generally love. Here there were elements that I absolutely adored, and I marked quite a few of those, and this is a very good book, but she written some brilliant ones, so there is something to complain about. This is one of Polish traditional national treats to complain, so let's put it right here. Then another book that I've read was, and is shortlisted, is Kang with her The White Book, and I will put a bit of a shtick here as well. As much as I adore that duo, Kang and Deborah Smith, I think this is the weakest out of 3 books. Still very good one, but Human Acts, my favorite one, is much better than most of the books that I've read this year. So that's a brilliant book, and obviously I would compare it to other books of given writer's portfolio that I know. So great one. Still, Vegetarian and Human Acts are better than this one. And then the third one that I've read, actually listened to, so let's put it straight, is Frankenstein in Baghdad by Ahmed Saadawi, translated by Jonathan Wright. Yes. Once again, that was an interesting experience, because this book in a very good manner describes the society, Iraqi one here, destroyed and demoralized by war. This is a book about the Frankenstein, the character built up from the pieces of bodies, various people bodies that were killed during the bomb eruption in Baghdad. It's sold as a horror / Kafkaesque type of a book. I don't see much Kafka there, and I think this term is being thrown around a lot and very often kind of misleading. I thought it's very interesting, innovative, but then it plays on the same pattern all the time, and I became pretty tired with it, around, let's say, 60% of it. So I think it's good, but it's not something that blew me away. So the 4th book shortlisted is Like a Fading Shadow by Antonio Muñoz Molina. I bought it before my holidays, and I haven't read it yet. And as I already said in my other video, this is the one that is blurring the lines between the fiction and non-fiction, as it's as much of a story, fictionalized account of life of James Earl Ray, the assassin of Martin Luther King, and in the same time it's an account if I understand correctly, of the writer Antonio Muñoz Molina writing this book. I'm very excited about this one actually, and this is one of 2 books on the shortlist that I haven't read that I'm excited about. And the second one that I'm very excited about that I haven't read is Vernon Subutex by Virginie Despentes, translated into English by Frank Wynne. This is more of a commentary of our current European affairs from what I've heard. A society commentary, a guy that owns a musical shop goes bankrupt and ends up on the street because of digital media. So yeah, but I've heard it's brilliant. And the only reason I haven't read it on my holidays is because the internet shop that I will not name, and it's not an English one, didn't deliver my book on time before my holidays. I mean, I took others with me, so no big deal, but I will buy it and read it. This is the second one I'm very excited about. And then the last one that I wasn't planning to read, the 6th shortlisted book, is Hungarian one, The World Goes On by László Krasznahorkai. And the only reason that I'm not very excited about it is because it's a short story collection and I'm not big on short stories. There is really not a single one short story collection that I picked up and I loved. For me, the form is too short to really make me invested in it. I'm okay and I can love short stories that are novels in disguise of short story. So the same characters, or somehow those short stories are interconnected and build up more wider story. So probably I will pick it up because it's shortlisted and I want to read it, as I always try to read all shortlisted books. But yeah, I'm not super excited. So as you can see, out of 6 books, I've read 3. I'm excited about 2. And I'm not excited about the 6th one. And out of the 3 that I've read, Olga Tokarczuk Flights, the White Book by Kang, and Frankenstein in Baghdad, none of those is the one that I loved. Yeah, so let me finish this off by crying over the fact that Go Went Gone, one of the books that I've read on my holidays, wasn't shortlisted, because this is a bloody crime. I love this one. First of all, the language is brilliant here, but that's not the most important. This is the story of a retired professor emeritus, that has no idea about immigrant situation in Europe. What's more, while you read it, you can see that he has pretty much no idea about the situation elsewhere in the world, especially in the third world countries. He is a professor of classic literature. What I loved here is how Jenny Erpenbeck very often contrasts the classical cultural side of Europe with immigrants that in quite a lot of eyes of Europeans are seen as barbarians, and how she shifts it around, how this professor names those immigrants that he makes friends with classical names, like Apollo, for instance. And this is just a playful thing. What's much more important here is how Jenny Erpenbeck builds a story of immigration and centers it in a much wider context of European history, our approach to immigrants, the way we started going obsessed about borders, why our nationalities were built and nationhood was established in our head during the history of Europe. How brilliantly she talks about the problems of third world countries, mostly African obviously, in the perspective of what our countries and our corporations, our meaning European ones, Poland is way too poor to really be involved, you know, financially in any third world country. I mean, very few corporations are. Give me a second. Uber Eats. So she brilliantly describes how corporations from Europe and our government supporting those corporations affect the situation in third world countries. So it's a brilliant argument every time you see the bullshit of people saying that they should take care of themselves. We cannot support and help everybody. It's half, at least in half, our own doing of what's going on there in those countries. So she is brilliant and she's not very didactic, or it's not very heavy-handed. It's really nicely implemented and it doesn't sell like a propaganda story. It's really put extremely well from the very humanistic perspective. You know, every time I talk about immigration with right-wing people that very often seem to be sharing Christian values, somehow very often they forget about those values when we talk about another human being that is knocking on our doors because there is hell going loose in the countries that they live in. So that's a brilliant book, and obviously probably me being interested in the topic affects how I see this book, but still reading any review of it probably, come on, I mean, why isn't it shortlisted while we had Exit West, Immigration Fable, longlisted and shortlisted for Man Booker, and probably it appeared on every single top books of 2017 list. While that book, Exit West, is terrible. Pretty much from every single angle. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting too wound up. The second book that I've read on my holidays that is not shortlisted but was longlisted was The Dinner Guest by Gabriela Ibarra. This is, again, pretty much a documentary, although it's a fictionalized account of Gabriela Ibarra family story, which is sold very often as the story of her grandpa that was the mayor of Bilbao, who was kidnapped by ETA and killed. While it takes like 30% of this tiny book, and the other part is the narration and the account of her mother struggling with cancer. What's brilliant here, although literally it's nothing spectacular, but the way she contrasts the public suffering, her grandfather's story, with her mother's very private suffering is brilliant. I thought that it's really interestingly showcasing the way public people suffer and how their tragedies are played in media and in general public eye. So yeah, from that point of view it's really good, but aside of that I found it pretty flat. Okay guys, I haven't read any of the remaining longlisted books, but I'm definitely going to pick up Javier Cercas, and yeah, I will read for sure, of course, Laurent Binet. That's another one that surprises me quite a bit, but I haven't read that one, so I cannot make a round as I just did with Go Went Gone by Jenny Erpenbeck. Please let me know how you feel about shortlisted books and tell me if you read any of those. I'll talk to you soon. Now it's time to eat something. Okay guys, bye bye.